Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, 𝐷𝐵 alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, week 1 is in the books in college football, baby. How'd you feel? Were you back in the saddle? Were you feeling a little rusty, or what were you thinking?
Dude, we've been back in the saddle for over a week because college football doesn't know how to count. This is just when everybody else gets to play. I'm just kidding. I don't like week 0. But, yeah, I guess a little bit back in the saddle. It's weird to be sitting there at 10 in the morning, Mountain Standard Time, and then watching some of these kickoffs and then being able to just relax knowing, we got the whole day of this. We got the NFL starting tomorrow. We are in it, baby.
We are in it. And so this is our college football reaction episode. We're going to do things a little bit differently. So if you've been with us, we think this is going to be a great kind of way that we're going to break down the week and look forward and then get into our picks later in the week. And if you're just joining us, welcome. I mean, we're trying to bring you some great content, different stuff that you're not going to hear in the national media. And so we're excited to get this underway. But Tyson, enough of me pontificating. Let's get into the week 1 reaction. And so our first segment here is I Told You So, and I'm going to let you go and kind of explain this and let you jump into it.
Yeah, so we wanted to just kind of start the show with us being able to take a little mini victory lap. And then we have a segment later for us to eat crow on some of the dumb things that we said a week ago. But this one for me, Brad, I was a little torn on which way to go. I didn't know if I wanted to go after the game T-Mac had. It was kind of hard to just like pass Ted McMillan off to the side. But we'll get to him in the Arizona Wildcats later in the show or in the betting preview show next that comes out later as well. But I have to start here, man. And I think you as a Penn State alumnus might appreciate this a little bit. We've been sitting here for a year and a half telling people that Drew Lar could play. We had to listen all offseason that Drew Lar couldn't play, that Drew Lar is overrated, that Aller has, he's mobile, but he's not too mobile, and he can't really stretch the field the way that you want your NFL quarterbacks to be able to. I've been reading some stuff that is saying Penn State struggled with West Virginia and Penn State didn't look the way that people wanted them to look against West Virginia. It was a monsoon, folks. The game got suspended for like a couple hours, and all that Drew Aller did was uncork bombs. And you can look at the stat line and go, well, I mean, it wasn't that impressive. He threw for 215 yards, and he only completed 11 passes. That's what you're missing. This Penn State offense a year ago with 11 completions, that's 65 yards passing. This is the 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐞 offense is different. Aller was showing that like he can stretch the field. They had some wide receivers step up in spots. There was maybe a little offensive pass interference here or there, but get your take on that. But I can't sit here and listen to any more of this Drew Aller can't play by people who are helmet scouting because you're used to your Christian Hackenbergs or whoever else that's come out of Penn State. This dude is different. This dude is a Big Ten champion caliber quarterback. He might not be a national championship caliber quarterback, but I feel a little vindicated after the last of what we had to hear for the last 4 months on Drew Aller.
Well, Tyson, I'm right there with you on I Told You So, because if you listen to our preview and our betting episode, just the money came in on West Virginia and everybody, Pat McAfee and ESPN. I mean, you had Urban Meyer and Nick Saban picking West Virginia to beat Penn State. Yeah. And what did we say on this show? This is ridiculous. Penn State has better athletes. They have a better quarterback. And I know people hate James Franklin. He's a better coach than Neil Brown. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, James Franklin loses to Ohio State and Michigan. And, you throw in a couple every few years where you're losing games you probably shouldn't. But other than that, this is 9 wins, 10 wins every single year at Penn State. And if they were in the Western Division instead of the East, they would be in the Big Ten championship game a whole lot more than they've been. So let's kind of put that notion to bed. So all we heard all week and all season, well, Aller sucks and James Franklin, you can't trust him, and this and that, Penn State, yada, yada. So that led into the West Virginia game. And all we kept seeing was where Penn State should have been the rightful double digit, tick down, tick down, tick down. And you had to listen to these experts. No, West Virginia's going to get him. It's going to be crazy there. And Drew Aller sucks. And to your point, he was unbelievable. The first drive was rusty. It was rusty and a little, I think, nervous, right? The fumble.
It's week 1.
Missed an easy pass, and it's like, yeah, you can't really miss those. So after that, he was complete nails, man. The 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐞 offense looked great. He got in rhythm. He allowed his quarterback to settle in, and you saw that 5-star arm just unload passes. Like when he throws balls, it just doesn't look like other people around the country. I mean, I know Miller Moss is the popular name right now. The guy was getting the ball batted down a million times, and there was a lot of lollipops. Like when Aller throws that thing, it rips through the air. And so if he can continue to build upon this, combined with Penn State's defense, I think people are going to have to eat crow about Penn State this year. That's the I told you so for me. Is Tyson and I'm got the Penn State thing behind me. He's wearing the Penn State hat. You just can't see it. I think the logo's underneath. I don't know, but both of us, we go into the Nittany Lions here, as I told you so. But Tyson, where's something that we got completely wrong?
I missed, and I told you I was going to miss if you listen to the betting preview show, but I fell for the Brian Kelly trap again, man. I fell for BK. The world isn't falling in Baton Rouge, but it sure kind of feels that way a little bit after your fifth consecutive openings or loss to open the season, third under Brian Kelly. It's a catch-22 when you schedule these really good teams out of the gate. Like, you want to see where you're at, but this is 3 years in a row of the LSU Tigers coming out looking unprepared, undisciplined, and scared to take the gloves off. And then that didn't change this week. I still kind of trying to wrap my head around, like, playing 7 yards off the sticks or off the guy at the line of scrimmage playing defense, or layering passes over and over again on that first drive. Kyron Lacy was awesome to start the game. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we're not doing that again. Another year where it looks like LSU probably isn't going to have a true bell cow running back, which, I knock on wood, but we're going on a pretty extensive stretch here. Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably the last one you can look at and say, he held down the backfield for the most part by himself over the course of the season. They're not going to have that this year. And so I fell for Brian Kelly's bullshit one more time. I'm not listening to him pound the table and be upset about how unprepared and undisciplined his team was, because that's your fault. And it's been your fault last year when you got embarrassed by Florida State. It was your fault 2 years ago when you missed an extra point to tie the game. And Brad, I would be a little bit remiss for all of the shitting on Lincoln Riley that I have done. That team looked good. That looked like a different football team, a team that I wasn't quite expecting. I thought there was going to be 1 billion points in this football game. USC's defense showed up to play. Don't listen to that's a Big Ten defense, because it's not. It didn't look that way, but they looked faster. They looked more physical. Lincoln still had some Lincoln Riley moments. I think that we'll get into that too. But I think I'm putting both hands up. One, because I fell for the Brian Kelly thing, and one, because I owe Lincoln Riley a bit of an apology. That was a different USC team than I expected to see.
Well, is it Lincoln Riley or is it D'Anton Lynn, the defensive coordinator, who actually brought some toughness and physicality? But, listen, we were begging him, right, Tyson? You got to make the change. So we can't chastise and be like, oh, it wasn't Lincoln Riley. Like, he made the decision to bring him in. So I feel you on the pain with Brian Kelly. What we know is that it's going to look insane late in the year. Like, this team has the pieces, man. Nussmeier looked great.
It's weirdly like they're nervous to put things on tape to start the year, is the way it seems. I mean, they've started the last couple seasons like this, and they still get to 10 wins. That is very much so on the table for this group. But at a certain point, you can't schedule top 25 teams and come in like this. We crap on Clemson for the same thing, so it's got to go the other way to LSU too.
Well, Tyson, my hand up. Wow. Do you want to talk about egg on my face? I had the Miami Gators. I had the Florida Gators upsetting the Miami Hurricanes. The swamp. I fell for it. Graham Mertz, who I just think it sucks. And I fell for the whole thing with Florida coming in here in Miami, and Cristobal stinks. So I got to put my hand up because, listen, Miami looked good, man. They were fast. They were physical. They looked prepared on offense. Cam Ward, who always starts off the season extremely well. He looked absolutely spectacular. 26 of 35, 385, 3 touchdowns, had that stupid pick, but was able to recover from it. This Miami team looked good. I got to give it up to Cristobal to have them prepared for this. And I can't come in and say I'm taking Florida because Cristobal's an idiot and he's horrible, and then not give him his flowers. So I got to put my hand up and say I made a mistake on that one. But I'm not going to apologize, Tyson, I need to apologize. I'm not going to apologize to myself, is what I'm trying to say, because I'm an idiot for once again falling for this Florida team and Graham Mertz. I don't know why. And so I'm like, well, they're an SEC team. They haven't recruited at an SEC level. They don't have SEC bodies in there. They have a quarterback who was ran out of Wisconsin. Tyson. A program who's begging to get quarterback play. And they chucked this guy out. They said, you suck. And now he's at Florida. They're going to start DJ Lagway, the freshman. He's 18, 19 years old. They're going to start him next game. That's how bad Graham Mertz was. And I fell for the trap. So I got to put my hand up and say I'm an idiot and made a mistake believing in this thing.
And on the Florida Gators, like I didn't expect the team to win the game. I didn't expect this to be a good team. If you go listen to our SEC preview, I expected at least a little bit of fight after the way that this whole offseason has gone. And Brett, it goes beyond the players in the locker room, and it goes a little bit beyond Billy Napier. I'm disappointed in the crowd. That was the most lifeless Florida Gator crowd I think I can ever remember. I mean, it was like from drive number one, it was like, this is the swamp. Like this is what we've been talking about. Like it is. You're number 7 or whatever in the country for toughest place to play. It sure didn't look like it. Defense was soft. Offense was dull. Don't ever put your hard-earned money on Graham Mertz to win a football game again. I don't even care if it's in Canada or Europe or wherever he ends up next.
All right, Tyson, let's get into this part of the show, biggest storyline. So what we're going to do is just go through what happened in the week, whether it was a football game, whether it was something that happened, players, whatever the case may be. But we're going to kind of riff a little bit and just talk about what we saw last weekend on week 1. I mean, for me, there's a lot of stuff that happened, but you know me, I love my wide receivers, and holy smokes, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams of Alabama, the 2 freshmen, unbelievable. Then you already mentioned that Tetairoa McMillan broke the Arizona single game record with 304 yards, tied the record for most touchdowns in a game with 4. And he became, in the first game that he's played as a member of the Big Ten at Arizona, he set an Arizona record set a Big 12 record by becoming the 4th player ever to go for over 300. I mean, it was just a special performance all around.
No, I mean, he's a special guy. And we've talked about this wide receiver kind of upcoming class quite a bit, actually, especially over the last couple of years. Last year, it was like, it's Marvin Malik. It's Marvin Malik. It's Marvin Malik. But if you were really watching, like Luther Burden was the really popular name, I think, in media circles as like, this guy's going to be next. And we had that conversation where I told you I think that T-Mac might be a little better. Like I think that there's something in his game. It's like a supercharged Drake London or Mike Evans is kind of like what I always come back to. It's body size, it's the way he moves, but he's fluid. And I said this to you during the game. He moves like a point guard. Like he doesn't move like everybody else. He moves like he's on a basketball court. And it's 6'5", 200 and however many pounds he is. There's a little weight that could get added to that frame. You don't need to do anything to Ted McMillan. I think that he could Jamar Chase this thing tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm going top 15. I don't need to put anything else on tape. Another storyline to me, Brad, we're going to get this a lot because that Arizona defense is disgusting. Like they're going to be throwing the ball a billion times a game. So go place your T-Mac plus 6,000 Heisman bets and your Noah Fafita plus 4,000 Heisman bets because they're going to put up crazy numbers. But Brad, one of the storylines to me, like, is every college football coach bad at clock management? Like, what is the deal?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm going to get into it a little bit for Donkey of the Week and go on a real rant, but it's horrible, man. I just don't understand. You're getting paid at this point multi-millions of dollars for the top programs. I know, Kent State, you're not necessarily, but how does that? What's going on with that?
I have no idea. I mean, we're talking about Colorado essentially trying to lose the game to literally pad stats, like they're telling us afterwards. Hey, we just we wanted to get them more experience and exposure. There's a minute and a half left. What are you doing throwing the ball? And I know that wasn't Pat's call because we've seen the Shermer offense in the NFL 100 times, and that's not the way they look. And there was some other guys that I'll save a little bit that really looked like they were trying to lose the game. And another storyline to me, Brad, we got to get 𝐬𝐮 a little love.
Oh, dude. 20 carries, 267, 6 touchdowns. Like, I know it's against Georgia Southern, but it's in the South. You can cramp up in that humidity. Unbelievable performance.
Dude, it could have been against the school for the deaf and the blind, and it still would have been a crazy stat line to put up. So he did this against an actual college football team. We talked a ton about how many good running backs there are in college football right now and how maybe not all of them are going to be good pros. I think 𝐬𝐮 has a shot to be the first guy off the board, and he might be the best player in Power 5, Power 15, however many conferences are not technically in the P4, the G5, yeah. Now it's like G5 and a half, but he was fantastic. But Brad, will you just maybe put a damper on this thing? We're talking about a lot of really good performances. Can you let me know something that wasn't up to par, up to snuff this week?
Well, I was shocked by Oregon and Michigan this weekend. I mean, I know they got. Well, I mean, Oregon, when we'll talk about it in the playbook preview, but, Oregon plays Boise State and 𝐬𝐮 and Michigan takes on Texas, so we'll preview that. But Oregon to score 24 points and give up 14 to Idaho in the second half, like that was a close game for a while. And then Michigan 30-10, that's a misleading score line. I mean, they had to have a pick six at the end. They were in trouble for a little bit here. I don't know what to take away from that. I mean, I think Michigan has a real issue at quarterback. Their receivers can't get open. Honestly, Michigan kind of looks like Penn State's receiving core last year when everybody was like, yeah, nobody's open there. Oregon, I'm less worried about. I mean, Dylan Gabriel went 382 touchdowns. I just don't know why they didn't score. I know there were a ton of penalties, but, there I'm less worried about. But Michigan was eye-opening, man.
Well, the Oregon thing, I think, like, in order to talk about how close this game was with Idaho, you have to understand just how much Idaho lost to the transfer portal after a fantastic season for them a year ago. And then you're basically trotting out new guys at every position. All your studs are gone. They're playing for USCs and Utahs and UCLAs, and it's a new group, and they're going to be fourth in the Big Sky Conference. And so for a top 5 team in all of college football in Oregon to struggle, and their score might have been a little misleading too, because it looked like there was a chance that they were actually going to find a way to lose this football game. I might have done this when I declared Dan Lanning coach in the Big Ten, so I do apologize. And I absolutely did this to Michigan on our betting show when I said I was going to get hooked by that 20.5. It was written in the stars, brother. They were winning by 20, no ifs, ands, or buts. But we've talked about this with Michigan. Donovan Edwards isn't as good as you guys think. He's not. And so when the offense is relying on him and like Ojulari is just supposed to run around, essentially, is kind of the way that it looks, and then like hope somebody comes open after 7 seconds. Like this isn't a recipe for success. And I'm not passing any judgment on Sherrone Moore. It's week 1. We'll see how this offense kind of continues to evolve, but the early returns sure look like a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team. If you would have slapped a Wisconsin logo on the side of that helmet and told me this was, the Melvin Gordon years, I would have believed it.
The other thing, I'll kind of wrap it up here, Tyson, and throw it to you if we want to move on to our upside of the week. But I was surprised that the gap being so shrunk between these G5s and the Power 5s or Power 4s on some games here. I mean, Wisconsin, Western Michigan was a battle.
Oh, crazy.
We just talked about Idaho, Oregon, and Michigan, Florida State, or I'm sorry, Michigan, Fresno State. I mean, I'm trying to think of another one here. There was, North Carolina State almost loses. That's shocking one. I should have lost. Northwestern almost loses to Miami, and you don't necessarily look at that as like, wow, that's strange. But I mean, Northwestern was beating Big Ten teams last year. South Carolina barely gets past Old Dominion. Like there needs to be a huge comeback in that one. I mean, I don't know if this is the NIL type of era, and when everybody said, hey, once these assets kind of get dispersed, and you can go to a 4-star kid and say, I'll pay you, and you can play immediately instead of sitting behind for 2 years. I don't know if we're finally starting to see that a little bit, at least on like kind of the fringe teams. But I don't want to make a huge grand statement because it's week 1 and some of these teams are holding on to things for conference play and their other matchups. But I kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit. It was like, is that going to be more the norm here going forward?
I've been saying it for a year and a half, 2 years now, that I think that the top of the group of 5 is way closer to the top 25 than people are willing to admit. But we only see, Liberty play Oregon, and we only see Georgia get their hands on some of these guys. If it is who's 25 right now, like whoever it is,
Clemson now, the new AP.
That's true. Then they might donkey somebody. They might out physical you. But I think that some of these, Power 4 teams that rely strictly on athleticism and not physicality are finding out that the gap is smaller. And it's going to continue to shrink when you keep getting these AAU teams essentially without time to mesh, especially week 1s, stuff like that. Last one for me. I said it. We'll say it again. Miss us with that Texas A&M stuff. I don't want to hear any of it. I like Mike Elko. We love Mike Elko on this podcast. We think he's a really good coach. I've never gotten the Connor Wegman stuff, and I never will. It looks like I won't get to see him probably play another down at College Station, which is a bummer for him. He's had a crazy career, but it's another year where it was like, A&M can't score the ball. That's why this team doesn't win football games. And Brad, let's get into our Donkey of the Day segment because we're missing the biggest storyline, and I think people are probably a little bit confused as to why we put it off for so long.
Sure. All right, let's get in the Donkey of the Week, man. I mean, you get into it. I want you to start riffing.
Mike Norvell and Florida State are frauds. They are frauds, frauds. I sat here in 2022 and said, I don't get the Mike Norvell thing. He's never had good lines. He doesn't seem to care about the lines. And then, last year I was in love with Jordan Travis, and I really liked what they had going on. And I sat here a couple weeks ago and said that I think that Florida State played the transfer portal better than anybody else. I think that they brought in guys to fill roles better than anybody else. They got manhandled twice by Tier 2 or Tier 3 Power 5 or Power 4 conference teams in Georgia Tech and Boston College. They got outcoached by both Georgia Tech and Boston College. This is the message they're sending. Isn't that last season was a fluke? It's that Mike Norvell he still can't recruit linemen. Like this is it's disgusting. DJU needs to go play baseball. I think that is solidified. He's been drafted. I mean, what are we doing here with this guy? Like, it's 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. This should be the rest of his last name, because it is horrible what he's doing. I mean, he's been in college for 7 years. It's still taking him a half an hour to get through progressions. And this isn't the guy that played at your Liberty and moved up. It's not Max Brosmer coming from New Hampshire to Minnesota. He has been in elite and well-run programs since the day he stepped on to a college campus. And you can say what you want about the Oregon State team last year. They were pretty good. And they were pretty good the year before DJU stepped in, and they didn't get much better. And Clemson got worse. And now it looks like Florida State's getting worse. These guys suck, man. And I think that Billy Napier and those guys, I think, are pretty grateful to share the state with the Florida State Seminoles right now. How weird was it seeing the scoreboard saying 0-1 and then 10 because we hadn't had the new rankings come out? The whole time I was sitting there looking like these guys aren't top 25.
Oh, I mean, now they're unranked. I think this rant is deserved, and this was one of the reasons why I pushed back on everybody falling in love with Florida State when they did. Let's be honest. Since Jimbo Fisher left, and since the Jameis Winston years, Tyson, it's a loser-ass program. I mean, just always over-promising and under-delivering. I mean, even last year, I mean, you feel bad for Jordan Travis, right? I mean, the leg injury, and maybe they could have competed for a national championship. Injuries happen. What do? They bitch and moan and go get their ass kicked in the bowl game by Georgia. And I know you had a lot of people sitting out. Well, if you want to prove something, why don't you go beat Georgia? But no, they sat on the sideline and no, we're going to opt out, and we're going to focus on us, and we're going to go to the NFL. And that's the story of Florida State, right? Like they point at the chest, and then you come into this one and everybody thinks it's going to be great. They had an entire offseason to go and address the quarterback situation. Multiple good players. I mean, McLeod from James Madison was out there. You had other players looking for new homes, and they decide on DJU. That's on Mike Norvell, and I don't feel bad for him at all. I mean, everybody's calling him a genius. Oh, wow, Florida State's back. And the same thing happens. This team's a loser-ass soft program, and that's where we're at. But, Tyson, my donkey of the week and donkey of the day, I think we'll workshop this a little bit, but it's Lincoln Riley's clock management. And people can come at me. You can come at me all you want on this one. I mean, they won the game, sure, and they kind of escaped by the skin of their teeth. That was a dumbass play and a dumbass decision before the half. And if you guys don't remember what occurred, LSU had an opportunity to kick a field goal here because they stopped them on 4th down. There were 2 minutes left, and USC could have called a timeout and give themselves 2 minutes back no matter what, with an opportunity to go down the field and score a touchdown. And while I'm sitting there, I'm watching this time come off the clock. Tick, tick, like tick, tick, tick. There's about a minute 20, a minute left when USC gets the ball back. So what happens? Instead of the minute that you have to go down the field and give yourself and your coach, give your young quarterback opportunities with 2 timeouts, mind you, because you could have just burned one. They go down the field and they leave themselves just even 5 seconds too little where they have to kick a field goal. Now, the college kicker missed like a 25-yarder, and it was just hilarious because that's what happens in college football. But that's why if you're Lincoln Riley, you have to be like thinking about these things like that. That's your job. Like 2 minutes versus 1 minute. I don't even think I have to sit here and say like you want the extra time, especially in college football. And so watching that just again blew my mind. And we talked about the clock management off the top. This was the example for me. And mismanaged clock situations just drive me up a wall. And that's exactly what I was watching in this one. So donkey of the week for me, Lincoln Riley, how he handled the before half situation.
And I want to point out that he tried to lose the game in the second half, wasting 2 timeouts in the middle of the third quarter. And then, like, obviously they're able to drive down the field and score the winning touchdown, and it doesn't matter. They score with no time left, essentially, and it's all gravy. Everything's good.
Right.
If that, a ball bounces a different direction, or any of these things, you're looking back at this going, wow, he messed up the end of the first half, and he wasted most of his timeouts at the beginning of the third quarter. Again, that's why it was part of my hand up segment. They came out, they were physical, they won the football game. He didn't do himself any favors as far as, like, wow, he's figured out how to truly be a head coach. It's one of the things in college football that it kind of gets lost, because you have to be the CEO of a company. You have to recruit all these kids. Now you have to contend with the transfer portal. You only have so much bandwidth, right? And you have to have your hands in so many different things. And it's like, sometimes it's just, guys, log on to Madden, just like run a 2-minute drill in there. What are we doing?
How about sometimes just have a brain? Like, is that, I mean, like, seriously, I don't know. Okay. Well, let's get into the upset of the week before we turn the page and get ready for week 2, Tyson. For me, I mean, it had to be my boys in Nashville, Vanderbilt, knocking off the Virginia Tech Hokies. That game was insane. And so, one, it hurt my wallet because our Discord that Tyson will tell you about after this, I took the live play because I'm like, Virginia Tech starting to heat up. Kyron Drones looks good. I think they kind of figured out a little bit of the offense here that Vanderbilt's trying to run. Well, Vanderbilt didn't go away, man. Like, they just kept sticking with it. They used Diego Pavia basically is like their sole running back. I mean, 26 carries, a $104 and a touchdown. Like, they're just like, dude, quarterback power, and let's try to get us with a victory. They had a chance to win it before the end of regulation. Pushed right. The field goal kicker was incredible all day. I thought I was going to get away with the Virginia Tech thing in OT, but no, they couldn't pull it off. And Vandy, with Clark Lee saying, man, this is a big year for us. How about this? They pull off a huge upset. People were picking Virginia Tech to win the ACC, and they lose their first one to Vanderbilt. Wow, what a performance from Vandy.
Yeah, I think it was awesome. We were running through on one of the podcasts, like, where is he going to land on the best seasons for Vanderbilt quarterbacks? And he just vaulted like all the way up the list. It's like him and Jay Cutler now. And he's only played one game. So shout out to Pavia, shout out to Vanderbilt for pulling it off. And I don't want to kind of repeat everything that I just said, but it has to be what Boston College did to Florida State, because this wasn't wow, I can't believe they snuck that one through. Like, Vandy kind of tried to give the game away, and Drones' body was just broken at the end of that game. Virginia Tech wasn't able to take advantage. He's like getting benched, or is he hurt, or what exactly is going on? Florida State just got outclassed. They got out physical. And then when it comes to nut cutting time and it's physical time, the times that we can look at in the ACC and go, well, Clemson's going to get a stop. For as much as we crap on Clemson, that defense will show up. Florida State was like, it's not an RPO if nobody's running a route, guys. Like, you're covering the fullback in the flat with 3 guys, and the quarterback is 17 yards up the field spinning on you, styling, ending the game the way that they did. I just felt like a lot was made about Bill O'Brien and this NFL coaching staff that Boston College has throughout the game. I felt like they played that up a little bit, especially at the end. They're taking knees in the red zone. I agree with Kirk. Like, that's worse. That's more disrespectful. Like, we came in here, we don't even care about scoring points. They outclassed them, they out-physicaled them, which, we love Jeff Hafley. This was not a Boston College team that we've seen in a while, and maybe they're going to be the surprise of the year, and that would be fantastic, I think, for this really just East Coast college football, because we need a big bad bully over there. But this was, I think, just in the true sense of the word, this was like jaw-dropping because it wasn't close.
Well, I don't think they made too much out of the coaching staff for Boston College. I thought it was exactly what we're begging about here on this podcast, Tyson. Like, if you see a weakness, you have to attack it until they stop it, and they couldn't. And we don't see that enough in college football all the time. Like, I feel like there's just too many coaching staffs who are just like, well, we came in, we wanted to do these plays. It's like, yeah, but they're literally not stopping Castellanos rolling out to his left, and he either dumps it across the middle or runs for 50 yards. Like, run that every single time. And O'Brien, because that's what they do in the NFL, is like, yeah, we're just going to spam this play until they figure out they can stop it.
Do you think that Bill O'Brien needs to get like an Old Spice sponsorship or something? We got to do something for that. That's maybe a sweaty man.
Well, imagine being like, Houston's pretty humid, so I bet he was dying down there. But imagine going from New England to Penn State. I guess you spend time in Houston, but back to New England, and then now you're up in Boston again, and then you just go down to Tallahassee. You're probably dying, man.
It was amazing to see like this old out of shape guy just sweating his balls off, absolutely pantsing your sunglass wearing super cool Florida State guys. Like we're more concerned with our hair. Bill O'Brien was like, I don't even have hair. I don't care about any of this. And they showed up and dominated. I mean, what Georgia Tech did to Florida State was like, okay, that might just be who Georgia Tech is. But then when Boston College did it, it was like, oh, the blueprint is out on how to beat these guys after 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's look ahead, man. Playbook preview. What we do here is we go and highlight the top games on the docket for week 2. Sometimes it can be 7 games, depending on what's going on. This week, it's only 3. So we're going to start with the top game of the weekend. That is number 3, Texas, going over to Ann Arbor and playing the number 7 ranked Michigan Wolverines. Now, I'll just kind of give some background here, and then we'll start dissecting this. But Texas looked good in their opener. I mean, they completely dismantled Colorado State. There were some people who weren't sure if they're going to show a whole lot. It just didn't really matter. Even without their starting running back and the running game situation, it kind of looks like it's in trouble. Meanwhile, Michigan, I think there's a lot of questions here. The offensive line didn't look as good. That was supposed to be their strength. And Tyson, if they're not going to be able to push around Texas, I think this is going to be a long day for them. What do you got going on this one?
Well, it's interesting. Like if you look at the line right now and you see Texas at 7.5, and then you realize they're on the road, and Vegas is essentially telling you this is a 9 or 10 point game on a neutral. And I don't know how I feel about that, because on the one hand, these are the defending national champions, and it's hard to really judge off of, especially week 1 in college football. This is one thing that I would like to say is that nothing that happened this last week, like nobody won a national championship and nobody lost one in the last week, especially in this new 12-team format. So if you're an LSU fan, you're fine. If you're a USC fan, this doesn't mean you're going to the playoff by any means, but Michigan is treading on lighter ground, I think, than everybody else. As far as, I don't know if they can look like this over and over and over again and drop some of these games to these high-level teams. I think this means more to Michigan. I just think Texas is way better based on just the one week that we saw. I think that Texas is way more explosive. I don't think that Michigan has. They have athletes, and they have the best corner in the country. But like outside of that, you kind of start looking around and you're like, man, where are all these blue chippers? And then you start thinking back to the Harbaugh years, and you're like, oh yeah, no, he was really good, and they had some really good college football players. But this is. For college football royalty right now, it kind of feels like they're a little bit less stacked, they have less juice to them than the Texas team. And honestly, whatever headgear 𝐬𝐿 puts on, I'm running to the book and hammer it.
So the blue chippers went and left Ann Arbor when Harbaugh did, because they all went to the draft and they all graduated. They went all in last year. Yeah. That's what they did. 6 years return. NIL, we're going to turn down the NFL money. We're coming back and we're trying to win a championship. We did it. Oh, the cupboards are extremely bare. Like Will Johnson, that's it. I mean, like you said with Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards, if they can't create a line, Tyson, Michigan's in trouble, because they're not going to be able to throw the football.
No, absolutely. I mean, at this point, it has to look like it has to look like what it looked like a week ago, or it has to look like what Boston College looked like this week, which is a crazy thing to say about Michigan. But this has to be quarterback power.
So, I mean, Alex 𝐿 didn't start. Alex 𝐿. I mean,
right? Yes.
So, do you think they sandbagged him, and he's actually going to be the starter in this one, and they're just going to do something completely different? I mean, Sharon Moore is the OC and the kind of the offensive mastermind here. Do you think they sandbagged last week?
Do you know how stupid that would be?
Like, imagine if they lost. And they beat Texas because they sandbagged.
Yeah, week 1 doesn't matter. We heard it on the I Said What I Said show. We can still make the natty. We're just rolling on this. I sure hope not, because I think that would be among the more brain dead decisions that I've ever seen. Like at some point, you got to start establishing positive momentum. And Michigan was able to kind of glide through last year with a lot of like, oh, they look bad for 3 quarters, but then the taste in your mouth at the end of the game was, you're like, this is a good football team. They're going to be fine. This one felt a little different. It was like they weren't really winning the game convincingly at any point, and it still felt like they didn't put it together. Are we getting Arch Manning snaps?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I got to tell you, I think Michigan's going to look pretty good in this game. I think Michigan might give them a scare, man. I think Texas is going to win the game, but I would not be surprised if we're looking up and I'm like, God, man, Michigan just, they're physical. They're blasting holes in this Texas defensive line. Donovan Edwards is running for over $1. And, everybody's like, whoa, this is why he's so good. Donovan Edwards Heisman. And we're sitting here kind of like, But in this game, we can see it, right? I mean, what do we say about Texas? We're just kind of have some questions about how their defensive line is going to look. That didn't matter against Colorado State. But, in this game, I think Michigan might have been sandbagging a little bit.
I don't care if they were sandbagging. If they were sandbagging, they might be the best team in the country. I don't feel like they were sandbagging. I would say that, they have the potential to hit home runs on the ground, unlike, your Colorado States or really anybody that Texas had to play a year ago. So maybe Donovan Edwards can pop off some 50-yarders. But it's the same recipe on how to beat Sark as it always is. It's ball control. Don't turn the football over and control the clock. And Michigan's better at that than just about everybody else.
And I wonder if they can get after Quinn Ewers and make him throw some mistakes.
I don't know if there's a good defensive line in college football. That was outside of the Georgia Clemson game. I was looking around. I was like, nobody's under pressure at all.
All right, let's get into the Cy-Hawk game. And this is week 2 is just not necessarily a great slate. Like, there's interesting games, but nothing that you're gonna be like, I got to be in front of the couch for this one. And it's not like this is going to be a pretty game at all, Tyson. But how about Iowa scoring 40 points last week, huh? Should we give them up? We give them a little clap for them actually figuring out the forward pass?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about how they got to 40 points, but they got to 40 points. If you live bet the Iowa over, you were scared for quite a while in this football game, and then it turned over. But Brad, do we owe Cade McNamara an apology, or I still don't think he looked that good?
No, you got to wait, Dan. This Iowa State defense is going to put them to the test. I mean, 21 to 31 for 251 and 3 touchdowns. Congratulations. You played the little sisters of the poor. Dude, you got to win a rivalry game.
The target was 4. It was 5 yards. I mean, he was not slinging this thing. It was Iowa football. They just scored 40 points.
So Iowa State didn't necessarily look good against North Dakota. I mean, not North Dakota State, folks. I mean, North Dakota. It was 21 to 3. And Rocco Beck looked good, 20 to 26, 267 and 2 touchdowns. But I saw that score line, and I was like, wait, what? Is there concern for you here with Iowa State?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm going to show a little bit of bias here. I think North Dakota is a good FCS team. They're a top 20 FCS team. So I think Iowa State looked fine. It's always tough to judge some of these games where one team is playing their Super Bowl and the other one is kind of getting ready for a really big game. I think this game means more to Iowa State. I think that Iowa State has the way that they run their offense just can cause so many problems for so many people. And they got a bunch of coaches who've been around for 100 years and they've seen everything. But they don't have, again, I mean, we mentioned blue chippers all the time. They lost a lot of guys to the draft too. And I'm not expecting Iowa State to come out here and just start throwing the ball all over the field. But I do think that this Iowa defense is a little bit less scary looking on paper. And again, we didn't learn anything a week ago than they have been in the past. And this game just gets weird. This game gets gritty and grimy and ugly. This is a sicko special. I'm very excited for this one. And I don't. Do you think that Iowa State's in some trouble here? I don't feel like they're in trouble.
I think that. Well, it's 2.5 point spread. Like you said, this game's insane. I just don't know if anybody's going to be in trouble for a blowout. I mean, I think both these teams could beat each other. And Tyson, let me run through this. You're going to love this. So since 2010, when Iowa, number 9 team in the country, blasted Iowa State 35-7, these have been the results. Iowa State wins in 3 overtimes, 44-41. Iowa State won again 9-6 in 2012. Then Iowa won 27-21, followed by Iowa State 20-17. We got some blowouts here with Iowa winning 31-17 and 42-3 in 2016. But here we go. This is the grime that we're talking about. Iowa wins in overtime. Iowa wins 13-3. Iowa wins 18-17. Iowa wins 27-17. In 2022, Iowa State wins 10-7. And then last year in a crazy game, Iowa won 20-17. This is a grime fest. Iowa leads 47-43 over, the little brother program, as they like to say. But, man, we know Matt Campbell, and everybody loves him. when does he win games? It's when nobody believes him. Tyson, I know, like, everybody's talking about Iowa. Well, they found their offense. They're going to be really good now. I think Iowa State may have something to say about that.
Yeah, and this is really just the game to decide who's going to be the biggest pain in the ass for the rest of the conference in the Big Ten. Whoever wins this game will end up beating somebody really good later in the season. But as far as, like, I'm not expecting either one of these teams to make the playoffs. I do think this is going to be the most fun game of week 2. No disrespect to Quinn Ewers and the boys.
All right, let's close with this one. Our third game that's here on our playbook preview. Boise State and 𝐿_𝐠HN travels to Eugene to take on the number 7 ranked Oregon Ducks. Now, one, we want to shout out Genty. And two, I'm intrigued about this because there's a history here where these teams don't like each other, at least in the past. Dan Lanning's talked about, like, hey, like, we're going to be ready for this game. Like, we want people at the zoo in Autzen to, like, show up and go nuts for this. I mean, there's history here. Boise State would love nothing more than to pull off this upset. I think this is going to be a fun one. Oregon obviously is the better team here. Like, they just, they're the top 10 ranked team, and Boise State really has Genty, and that's it. But these games kind of have a tendency to get a little strange too.
Yeah, and they're going to be physical, and this is a little ode to the old school days, like when we were, coming of age, when we were young. This is the time of day you start decompressing and you go, oh, there's a crazy game on tonight, and it almost always featured Boise State, or it almost always featured a Pac-12 team. I mean, we miss Pac-12 after dark. They're all still playing after dark, so we can just pretend it's alive. This is a game that I expect Oregon to come out and roll. To me, it kind of felt like maybe a week ago they were looking past Idaho to get to this one. We've heard the messaging from Dan Lanning, like, this one matters. We really want to get these guys. And Dan Lanning's a heck of a defensive football coach, and if he can just have his guys key in on Genty, I don't think that, like, Camper scares you enough if you're Oregon to just, like, not allow Boise State to throw the football. But that offense has to score points. Like, you can have as many yards as you want. It's the same thing with LSU. It's like, yeah, you had 500 yards. You didn't score the ball, and at the end of the day, that's how we determine who wins and loses.
So they've matched up 10 times, 4 wins, 6 losses. For Boise State's won 4 times, had 6 losses. Away from home, they're 1-4. At home, they're 3-1. So this is in Eugene. History says kind of the Ducks are taking it here, and I just think, they have a stacked roster. To me, if after 𝐿_𝐠HN can put up a great performance on this Oregon team, Tyson, should he be the Heisman frontrunner?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, right now we're looking. It's Dillon Gabriel, who, like, looked exactly like how we expected, and he's going to look that way for the rest of the year. So it's going to take somebody being awesome to probably dethrone him. Jackson Dart moves way up the boards for beating a Furman team by 70 points. I don't care about any of that. Cam Ward's going to lose football games. Eventually Miami's going to lose games. The things we talked about with Carson Beck have already started to come to fruition, where you're looking around and you're like, damn, there's so many good players on Georgia. It's really hard to hand this guy the Heisman Trophy. And then, like, yeah, I would think so. Like, I would take him if he has another really good game over somebody like Travis Hunter. It's the boy in Tennessee that's got me a little. I'm looking at those Heisman tickets right now with Nico. I think that he looked as advertised to start his college football career, and that offense is just so crazy that he might end up throwing for 5,000 yards.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's a good thought. Well, we have a futures tab in our Discord, Tyson. You want to tell the folks about that as we get out of here?
Yes, Discord. I said what I said. You can join us, NFL, NCAA football, long shot slips. Brad's hitting home run parlays. We have a whole bunch of stuff in there. Whatever you can think of, we're playing it, and we want to see what you guys are playing as well. So hop in there. And yeah, the futures tab is something that we're going to try to get more into, especially, like, now's the time, folks. You got to hop in and play them, because futures market's closing on the NFL in like 24 hours, essentially. It's college football. The Heisman stuff will go all season long, but if you really want to just get into a community of people who are just trying to have a good time and let you know what we're playing, we want to know what you're playing. It's too early for me to think about Heisman bets, but I'd sure love to see some of your guys.
Absolutely. And like, subscribe, and share the show. We're doing a different format. So we kind of got a little backed up here as we try to get all of our preseason content in, but Going forward, we're going to have some good stuff for the NFL, and we're going to have later in the week our gambling episode. So we'll have you covered for week 2. Tyson and I got a little hot in week 1. It was a great bounce back, and so we'll be back giving bets there. So if you're watching this on the way out, just go ahead and smash that like button for us. Share the show, really helps us grow and all that good stuff. We appreciate all your support. And we'll be back later in the week giving you bets, not in just the college football, but our first NFL betting episode as we get ready for a full cornucopia of football starting basically every single day going forward. So talk to y'all then, guys. Till then, peace.